Hello. So today we're going to be reading the Geometry TOS. Let's go. Terms of service. This terms of service is entered into between you and RobTop Games AB, its subsidiaries and affiliates. Hereinafter, RobTop or us, our, or we, and applies to all RobTop games, websites, and services on which it is placed collectively. The services. Use of the service is also governed by RobTop's privacy policy and all relevant policies, which are incorporated herein by reference. For accessing or using the service, including browsing any RobTop website or accessing a game, you must agree to these terms of service and the privacy policy. You may also be required to register account on the service, an account. By registering for an account otherwise using the service, you represent that you are age 13 or older. If you are between the ages of 13 and 17, your representative legal guardian has reviewed and agreed to these terms. By installing, using, or otherwise accessing the service, you agree to these terms of service. If you do not agree to the terms of service, do not install, use, or otherwise access the service. RobTop possesses the right, at its discretion, to change, modify, add, or remove portions of these terms of service. Its privacy policy, that are relevant RobTop policies at any time by posting the amended terms on the RobTop service. You will be deemed to have accepted such changes by continuing to use the service. If at any point you do not agree to any portion of the then current version of a terms of service, RobTop privacy policy, or any other RobTop policies, rules, or codes of conduct related to your use of the service, your license to use the service shall immediately terminate. You must immediately stop using the service. 1. Use of services. 1.1 Age restrictions. You shall not create an account to access the service if you are under the age of 13. You shall restrict use by minors, and you will deny access to children under the age of 13. You accept full responsibility for any unauthorized use of the service by minors. 1.2 Account restrictions. You shall not or attempt to purchase, sell, rent, or give away your account. You shall not create an account using a false identity or information or on behalf of someone other than yourself. You shall not use the service if you have previously been removed by RobTop or previously been banned from playing any RobTop game. You shall use your account only for non-commercial purposes. You shall not use the service to advertise or solicit or transmit any commercial advertisements, including chain letters, junk or spam email, or repetitive and misleading messages to anyone. 1.3 License. Subject to your agreement and continuing compliance with these terms of service and any other relevant RobTop policies, RobTop grants you a non-exclusive, non-transferable, non-licensable, revocable, limited license to access and use the service for unknown commercial entertainment purposes. You agree not to use the service for any other purpose. 1.3.1 Login information in your account. You may be required to select the password for your account, or you may also use other credentials to access the account. Login information. You shall not share the account or your login information, nor let anyone else access your account or do anything else that might jeopardize the security of your account. In the event you become aware of or reasonably suspect any breach of security, including without limitation, any loss, theft, or unauthorized disclosure of the login information, you must immediately notify RobTop and modify your login information. You're solely responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of the login information. You'll be responsible for all uses of login information. RobTop reserves the right to remove or reclaim any usernames at any time and for any reason, including but not limited to claims by a third party that a username violates the third party's rights. 1.3.2 License limitations. Any use of the service in violation of the license any use of the service in violation of these license limitations is strictly prohibited, can result in the immediate revocation of your limited license, and may subject you to liability for violations of law. You agree that you will not, under any circumstances, engage in any act that RobTop deems to be in conflict with the spirit of intent of the service, or make improper use of RobTop support services. Use to take part, directly or indirectly, in the use of cheats, exploits, automation software, bots, hacks, mods, or any unauthorized third-party software designed to modify or interfere with the service, any RobTop game experience. Modify or cause to be modified any files that are part of the service or any RobTop game without RobTop's express written consent. disrupt, interfere with, or otherwise adversely affect the normal flow of the service, otherwise act in a manner that may negatively affect other users' experience using the service or playing RobTop's games, disrupt, overburden, or assist in the disruption of overburdening any computer or server used to offer or support the service of any RobTop game environment. Institute, assist, or become involved in any type of attack, including without limitation, the distribution of a virus, denial of service attacks upon the service, other attempts to disrupt the service, or, any other person's use or enjoyment of the service. Attempt to gain unauthorized access to the service, gets registered to others or to the computers, servers, or networks connected to the service by any means other than the user interface provided by a RobTop, including but not limited to by circumventing or modifying, attempting to circumvent or modify, or encouraging or assisting any other person to circumvent or modify any security, technology, device, or software that is part of the service. Post any information that is abusive, threatening, obscene, defamatory, libelous, that is racially, sexually, religiously, or otherwise objectionable or offensive, or engage in ongoing toxic behaviors, just by repeatedly posting information on an unsolicited basis. Post any information that contains nudity, excessive violence, or offensive subject matter contains links to such content. Attempt to harass, abuse, or harm, or advocate, incite, or carry out harassment, abuse, or harm of another person or group, including RobTop's employees. Make available for the service any material or information that infringes any copyright, trademark, patent, trade secret, right of privacy, right of publicity, any other right of any person or entity that impersonates any other person. Reverse engineer, decompile, disassemble, decipher, or otherwise attempt to arrive at source code for any underlying software or other intellectual property used to provide the service or any RobTop game, or to obtain any information from the service or any RobTop game using any method not expressly permitted by RobTop. Solicit or attempt to solicit login information and any other login credentials or personal information from other users of the service or any RobTop game. Collect and post anyone's private information, including personally identifiable information, whether in text, image, or video form, identification documents, or financial information for the service. RobTop reserves the right to determine what conduct it considers being in violation of the rules of use or otherwise outside the intent of spirit of these terms of service or the service itself. RobTop reserves the right to take action as a result, which may include terminating your account and prohibiting you from using the service in whole or in part. 1.4. Suspension and termination of account and service. Without limiting any other remedies, RobTop may limit, suspend, terminate, modify, and delete accounts or access to the service or portions thereof if you are, or RobTop suspects that you are, failing to comply with any of these terms of service or for any actual suspected illegal or improper use of the service, with or without notice to you. You can lose your username and persona in the service as a result of account termination or limitation, as well as any benefits, privileges, and items and purchase items associated with the use of the service. RobTop is under no obligation to compensate you for any such losses or results. Without limiting our other remedies, we may limit, suspend, and terminate service in user accounts or portions thereof, prohibit access to our games and sites and their content, services, and tools, delay or remove hosted content, take technical and legal steps to prevent users from accessing the service if we believe they are creating risk or possible legal liabilities, infringing the intellectual property rights of third parties, or acting inconsistently with the letter of spirit of our terms or policies. Additionally, we may, in inappropriate circumstances and under sole discretion, suspend or terminate accounts of users who may be repeat infringers of third-party intellectual property rights. RobTop reserves the right to terminate any account that has been inactive for 180 days. RobTop reserves the right to stop offering and/or supporting the service or a particular game or part of the service at any time, at which point your license to use the service as a part thereof will be automatically terminated. In such event, RobTop shall not be required to provide refunds, benefits, or other compensation used in connection with such a discontinued service. Termination of your account can include disabling your access to the service or any part thereof, including any content you submitted or unsubmitted. You may terminate your account at any time for any reason by contacting us at this email to inform RobTop that you wish to terminate your account. Some additional information may be required from you in order to complete account termination. 2. Ownership. 2.1 Games and Service. All rights, title, and interest into the service, including but not limited to any games, titles, computer code, feeds, objects, characters, character names, stories, dialogue, catchphrases, concepts, artwork, animations, sounds, musical composition, audio-visual effects. Holy shit, this is long. Are owned by RobTop. RobTop preserves all rights, including without limitation, all intellectual property rights or other proprietary rights in connection with games in the service. 2.2 Account. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary, herein you acknowledge and agree that you have no ownership or other property interest in the account, and you further acknowledge and agree that all rights to the account shall forever own and by and inure to the benefit of RobTop. Okay, North Korea. 2.3 Virtual goods and items. RobTop owns, has licensed, or otherwise has rights to use all of the content that appears in the service or in RobTop games. Notwithstanding any provision to the contrary herein, you agree that you have no right or title in or to any content that appears in the service, including without limitation, the virtual goods or currency appearing or originating in any RobTop game, whether earned in a game or purchased from RobTop, or any other attributes associated with an account or story on the service. You acknowledge that RobTop is not required to provide a refund for any reason, and you will not receive money or other compensation for unused virtual items when an account is closed, whether such closure is voluntary or involuntary. God, I need to drink water. Free. User content. 3.1 Submission of user content. User content means any communications, levels, images, sounds, and audio material data and information that you upload or transmit from a RobTop game client or the service, or that other users upload or transmit, including without limitation any chat text, by transmitting or submitting any user content while using the service. Your firm, represent, and warn that such transmission or submission is A. Accurate and non-confidential or misleading, b. not in violation of any laws, contractual restrictions, or other third-party rights, have permission from any third party whose personal information or intellectual property is compromised by the user content, or c. such content will free of viruses, adware, spyware, worms, or other malicious code, and d. you acknowledge and agree that any of the personal information within such content will at all times be processed by RobTop in accordance with within its privacy policy. 3.1.1 Content Screening. RobTop assumes no responsibility for the conduct of any user submitting any user content, and assumes no responsibility for monitoring the service for inappropriate content and conduct. We do not and cannot pre-screen or monitor all user content. Use of the service is at your own risk. By using the service, you may be exposed to user content that is offensive, indecent, or otherwise not in line with your expectations. Bear all risks associated with the use of any user content available in connection with the service. At our discretion, our representatives of technology may monitor and/or record your interaction with the service and communications, including without limitation chat text, when you are using the service. By entering into these terms of service, you hereby provide your irrevocable consent to such monitoring and recording. You acknowledge and agree that you have no expectation of privacy consenting to transmission of any user content. RobTop reserves the right in its sole discretion to review, monitor, prohibit, edit, delete, disable access to, or otherwise make unavailable any user content, including without limitation, your user content without notice for any reason or for no reason at any time. If at any time RobTop chooses, in its sole discretion, to monitor the service, RobTop nonetheless assumes no responsibility for user content and assumes no obligation to modify or remove any inappropriate user content. We have the right, but not the obligation, in our sole discretion to edit, refuse to post, or remove any user content. 3.2 Information used by other members of the service. 3.2.1 Public Discourse. The service may include various forums, blogs, and chat features where you can post user content, including your observations and comments on designated topics. RobTop cannot guarantee that other members will not use the ideas and information that you share. Therefore, if you have an idea or information that you would like to keep confidential and/or don't want others to use, not posted on the service. RobTop shall have no responsibility to evaluate, use, or compensate you for any ideas for information you may choose to submit. 3.2.2 Responsible for your own content. You're solely responsible for the information that you post on for or in connection with the service that you provide to others. RobTop may reject, refuse to post, delete any user content for any or no reason, including but not limited to user content that in the sole judgment of RobTop violates these terms of service. 3.2.3 Your license to RobTop. Hereby granted to RobTop an irrevocable, perpetual, transferable, fully paid up, royalty-free, worldwide licensing, including the right to sub-license an assigned third party, and right to copy, reproduce, fix, adapt, modify, create derivative works from, manufacture, commercialize, publish, distribute, sell, sub-license, transfer, lease, transmit, publicly display, publicly for. Oh my god! In any way, you use the content as well might be modifying derivative works thereof in connection with the provision of the service, including marketing promotions of the service. You also hereby grant to RobTop the right to authorize others to exercise of any of the rights granted to RobTop under these terms of service. You further hereby grant to RobTop the your conditional irrevocable right to use and exploit your name, like this, and any other information or material included in any user content and in connection with any user content without any obligation to you. Except as prohibited by law, you waive any rights of attribution and or any moral rights you have when you use content, regardless of whether you use your content altered or changed in any manner. RobTop does not claim any ownership rights to your user content, and nothing in these terms of services is intended to restrict any rights that you may have to use and exploit your user content. RobTop has no obligation to modify or enforce your intellectual property rights into your user content. I'm starting to foam at the mouth. 3.3 User interactions. You're solely responsible for your interactions with other users of the service and any other parties with whom you interact with the service and our RobTop games. RobTop preserves the right but has no obligation to become involved in any way with these disputes. You will fully cooperate with RobTop to investigate any suspected, unlawful, fraudulent, or improper activity, including without limitation, granting RobTop access to any password protected portions of your account. If you have a dispute with one or more users, you release us and our officers, directors, agents, subsidiaries, joint ventures, and employees from claims, demands, and damages, actual and consequential, of every kind and nature, known and unknown, arising out of or in any way connected with such disputes. Fees and purchase terms. 4.1 Purchases. With the service, you may purchase with real-world money a limited personal, non-transferable, non-lossable license of revocable license to use A. Virtual currency, including but not limited to virtual cash, gems, and bucks, all for use in RobTop games. B. Virtual in-game items, together with virtual currency, virtual items. And C. Other goods and services. Merchandise. You're only allowed to purchase virtual items from us or authorized partners for the service, not in any other way. RobTop may manage, regulate, control, and modify or eliminate virtual items and merchandise at any time, with or without notice. RobTop shall have no liability to you or any third party in the event that RobTop exercises any such rights. The transfer of virtual items and merchandise is prohibited except when expressly authorized in the service. Other than as expressly authorized in the service, you shall not sell, purchase, redeem, or otherwise transfer virtual items or merchandise to any person or entity or attempt of the aforesaid, including but not limited to RobTop, not a user or any third party. All purchases and redemptions of virtual items made for the service are final and non-refundable. The provision of virtual items for use in RobTop games is a service provided by RobTop that commences immediately upon acceptance by RobTop of a purchase. 5. Updates to the service. You understand that the service is an evolving one. RobTop may require that you accept updates to the service and to RobTop's games you have installed on a device or computer. You acknowledge and agree that RobTop may update the service and RobTop games with or without notifying you. You may need to update third-party software from time to time in order to receive the service and play RobTop games. 6. Disclaimer of warranties. Without limiting RobTop's liability under Section 7 below, the service is provided on an as-is and as-available basis for your use, without warranties of any kind, expressed or implied, including without limitation, warranties of merchantability, fitness for a particular purpose, title, not infringement, and those arising from course or dealing with usage of trade. RobTop does not warrant that you will be able to access to use the service at the times or locations of your choosing. That the service will be uninterrupted or error-free, that the facts will be corrected, or that the game of the service are free of viruses and other harmful components. Some jurisdictions not allow the exclusion of certain warranties. Accordingly, some of the above disclaimers may not apply to you. 7. Limitation of liability. RobTop Games AB shall not be liable to you for any indirect, incidental, consequential, special, punitive, or other similar damages, including but not limited to loss of revenues, lost profits, lost data, or business interruption for intangible losses. However, such losses are qualified, arising out of or relating in any way to these terms of service or the service itself, whether based on contract, tort, or any other legal theory, and whether or not RobTop has been advised of the possibility of such damages. In no event shall RobTop be liable for you more than the amount you have paid a RobTop in accordance with these terms of service in the 180 days immediately preceding the date on which you first set a claim. You acknowledge and agree that you have not paid anything to RobTop during such time period. Your sole remedy and RobTop's exclusive liability for any dispute with RobTop is to stop using the service and to cancel your account. Nothing in these terms of service shall affect the statutory arisement of any considerable or exclude or restrict any liability resulting from gross negligence or willful misconduct of RobTop or for death, personal injury arising from any negligence or fraud of RobTop. You agree to indemnify, defend, and hold RobTop and our officers, directors, agents, and employees harmless from any claim, demand, damages, or any other loss, including reasonable attorney's fees said by third party resulting from or arising out of your use of the service, or any breach by you of the terms of service. However, the foregoing does not apply if the infringements and rights is not attributable to intentional negligent behavior. 8. General terms. 8.1. Force majeure. RobTop shall not be liable for any delay or failure to perform resulting from causes outside the reasonable control of RobTop, including without limitation. Any failure to perform hereunder due to unforeseen circumstances or cause beyond RobTop's control, which may include any act from God, storm, fire, flood, casualty, unanticipated work stoppage, power outage, satellite failure, strike, lockout, labor dispute, civil disturbance, riot, war, national emergency, governmental action, or other cause beyond its control. 8.2. Severability. You and RobTop agree that if any provision of this agreement is held unlawful, void, or for any reason unenforceable, then that provision will be deemed severable from the agreement and will not affect the validity or enforceability of any remaining provision. No waiver. The failure or delay of RobTop to require and enforce strict performance by you or any provision of these terms of service, RobTop privacy policy, or failure to exercise any right under them shall not be construed as a waiver of RobTop's right to assert or rely upon any such provision, rather in that or any other instance. Additionally, any provision, condition, or requirement of these terms of service of the RobTop privacy policy expressed as waived shall not constitute a waiver for any future obligation to comply with the terms, except expressly and specifically set forth in these terms. No representation, statements, waivers, consent, nor any or other acts or omissions by RobTop shall be deemed a modification of these terms of service, nor legally binding, unless documented in physical writing, and signed by a duly appointed officer of RobTop and by you. 8.4. Supplemental terms. RobTop may publish additional policies related to specific services, such as commuted forums, contests, special events. Your right to use such services is subject to both the specific policies set forth in these terms of service. 8.5. Entire agreement. This service is including the RobTop privacy policies and any applicable additional terms. It's the entire agreement between the parties related to the matters contained herein. 8.6. Assignment. RobTop may assign or delegate these terms of service and/or RobTop privacy policy, in whole or in part, to any person or entity at any time with or without your consent. It may not assign or delegate any rights or obligations under the terms of service privacy policy without RobTop's prior written consent. And any unauthorized assignment and delegation by you is ineffective. 8.7. Notices. We may notify you via postings on RobTopGames.com and via email or any other communication. We need contact information you provide to us. All notices given by you are required from you under these terms of service or the RobTop privacy policy shall be in writing and addressed to RobTop Games AB, Fresta Kirkväg 10, 19454, Upplands, Visby, Sweden. Any notices that you provide without compliance with the section of notices shall have no legal effect. 8.8. equitable remedies. He acknowledges the rights granted and obligations made under these terms of service to RobTop are of a unique and irreplaceable nature, loss of which shall irreparably harm RobTop and which cannot be replaced by monetary damages alone, so that RobTop shall be entitled to injunctive or equitable relief, without the obligations of posting any bond surety proof of damages. In the event of any breach anticipate or breached by you. You irrevocably waive all rights to seek injunctive or other equitable relief or to enjoin or restrain the operation of the service or any RobTop game, exploitation of any advertising or other materials issued in connection therewith, or exploitation of the service, any content or other material used or displayed for the service, and agree to limit your claims to claims for monetary damages limited by Section 7, if any. Contact. You may contact RobTop regarding the terms of service by emailing support@robtopgames.com or by mail. RobTop Games, Abby Fresta Kirkvaktin. Yeah, this is the same thing. And here's things about domestic agents. I don't know what this is all about, but there it is. The entire terms of service. Bye.